Have you ever wanted to start a podcast but don't know how? Look no further than Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free of charge. And yes, actually completely free of charge. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more major podcasting platforms. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership necessary, and more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Once again, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. ANCHOR.FM. Thank you for listening. Now enjoy the video. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Greetings, lovers of lore. I'm Original Orchid.
And I'm Vicious Venus.
Welcome to our first co-host episode. Yay! Okay, so today we're going to just dive right in, and we're going to talk about the popular webtoon series, Your Throne.
So keep in mind that there are going to be a few age restrictions, and none of this content belongs to us, but the amazing webtoon creator of Your Throne. Keep in mind that there's going to be a lot of spoilers, and these are our opinions, they're not facts, and feel free to share your opinions.
Right. And depending on which platform you are, or you can either message us or leave a comment down below, and we will reply to you and have this amazing lovers of lore discussion. Okay, so today, before we get into our topics, which I'll discuss very shortly, let me discuss the webtoon Your Throne. So I'll read aloud the summary that has been presented on Webtoon. As I quote, "Tensions are brewing under the seemingly calm surface of the Vasilos Empire, a kingdom ruled by the imperial family and the temple. Lady Medea Solon has lost her place next to Crown Prince Eros, but resolves to do whatever it will take to win back what's rightfully hers. Will she reclaim her throne?" So in this series, it's basically this amazing, intelligent, smart, kind, as you can see, I'm very biased, protagonist. And in order to gain her spot in the empire and gain a throne, she's entered into this princess competition to become the crown prince's next princess and eventually the next empress of the empire. However, later on, she realizes, wow, I actually don't need this, and I can actually do this without getting married to this horrible guy. So, as the series progresses, we get to see more of her amazing character, and we love it so much. Which dives in to our first topic of the day. Is Medea Solon a good person?
This is kind of a complicated question, which will be followed by a complicated answer, because one reason why this webtoon is super popular is because of the complexity in its characters. They're not one-dimensional, they don't have one personality trait, they go through little mini character arcs, they have so much progression, and it's kind of hard to keep track with everything that changes throughout the story.
Exactly. So, Medea specifically is a very complicated character to wrap around. In our heads, in our completely biased heads, which by the way, we're going to try to take away the bias in order for this conversation to be an actually good discussion, and encourage you guys to do the same, because bias isn't going to help us during this conversation. As much as of an amazing protagonist Medea is, and her very intelligent nature, as shown in the webtoon, when she's actually the one that's making her father's plans to get more land, to acquire more money. She's very intelligent. However, several of the things she does is quite manipulative. And if shown through the other person's perspective, assuming that the series wasn't mainly through her perspective and later on another protagonist named Psyche's perspective, we'd probably see her as very, very horrid. And if we were reading the series through the other person's perspective, the comments wouldn't be filled with, oh, this character's amazing. Oh my god, she's so intelligent. Oh my god, she's a total queen. We'd probably hear the exact opposite, and we'd hear all this horrible stuff about her.
Which
So,
honestly brings us to our first point. Would we agree that Medea is a good person if we saw through another perspective? Like Orchid was saying, if we were seeing through Psyche's perspective or anyone other perspective, we would probably think that Medea is a villain. So it kind of makes it complicated. Is she really that great of a person?
so, uh, Venus. What are because Venus is actually the person who created this amazing topic. Kudos to her. Congratulate her in the comments. Um,
Same.
what are some of the things you would highlight as manipulative that she's done in this series so far?
Well, she often plays with the feelings of other people. She tries to use their weaknesses to her advantage.
Mm.
And to be honest, I haven't refreshed my mind on the series lately. I did not go back to the earlier episodes, but I do recall one moment when I think it was during the part when she was almost assassinated. She tried to make herself look very weak, very weak and innocent. But right when her attackers were about to kill her, she pulled out a dagger and murdered all of them.
Mm. We see something similar like that later on, and great example, by the way. When she's in Psyche's body. Yes, this is why we were saying there will be spoilers. She changes bodies with another person. How crazy is that? But it totally makes sense if you read the series. Yeah, but the way later on, when Medea is being attacked, later by a character identified as Peli, which if you're up to date, and we mean this by the English translations, not the Korean versions, because we do not know Korean, then you would know that she's acquired Peli as a tool. And she has this whole fight with Peli in the recent episodes, and then fights very weak in this episode as well, in order to manipulate him and make him think that she's this weak and dainty character. And in the end, she takes the knife. She takes the sword, sorry, not a knife, and she brings it to his neck. She wins this battle because this entire time she's been manipulating him with her mind, and she's been making him think she's a lot weaker than what she currently is in order to acquire this tool, in order to take over the empire. At least that's what we can presume, because currently we actually don't know her later motives. But yeah, and then if it is that reason, and I have thoughts to believe that even if it is a different reason, and Venus, tell me if you also agree with this. I don't think her reason's that good that if we were on the other perspective, we would agree with it. Rather, it's a lot of the time is stemmed out of her hatred for the prince. Which, yes, the prince is
Yeah,
a horrible person.
I really do agree with this. Like, since we are seeing the story through her eyes mainly, we understand what she's thinking. We know what kind of family she grew up in, her environment, and her aspirations. And throughout the entire time, we're rooting for her. We want her to take over the empire. We want her to become the next queen. But if we were looking at it from somebody else, she would seem like some dictator who wanted to rule the world.
Exactly. And then that also
I
brings
do. I do want to clarify that the examples we used might be like, oh, well, she's just trying to defend herself, so you can't blame her for being manipulative. But we're
Yeah.
using these examples to show you that she has that potential, and she's used those skills multiple times throughout the series. We just can't really recall some at the moment.
Yeah. We're doing this very spontaneously. But yeah, and then Vicious Venus brought up a very good point in this debate as well. She brought up her environment, her family, which was quite frankly horrible.
Yeah, her father's really the worst.
Yeah, her father used her, and as I stated earlier, we see her intelligence very early on in her life. She's been making these plans to get money and land and whatever she wants. She's very well educated because she pushed herself to read as many books as possible, which, from a fellow book lover, can I say, amazing. I stand. Book lover. So, yeah, without that, she's done all these things, and her father took advantage of this. And she thought it was okay because she thought she was getting credit for this. But her father actually took these ideas and he took credit for them, which is not okay under any circumstances. And then in the recent episodes, what we've been seeing is he actually beat up and killed her maid. And this is a maid that's basically raised her. So even now, as an adult, she's still growing up in this horrible environment that she feels she's not escaping.
You might think that Medea should be smart enough to leave this kind of household, but you do have to understand that she grew up thinking that if she continued to let her father continue this behavior, if she continued letting him steal her ideas, in return she would get love. But
Yeah.
sadly that was not the case. No matter how many times she tried her best, it wasn't really enough. I guess this could be a point that should add into the is Medea a good person? To be honest, it wasn't her fault that she ended up being manipulative. Perhaps that was just the environment she grew up in.
Right. And I'm not sure if you ever heard the phrase, children with strict parents become great liars. But that sort of resembles what happened here. She's grown up in an environment where she's been used, she's been hurt, she's had tears because of these horrid people who didn't pay any attention to her, who didn't love her the way parents should be loving their wonderful children, especially if they're as wonderful as Medea is. But then, because of that, she's stemmed these traits that have led her to do things that perhaps don't align with the moral values. Use that,
Perhaps she is only manipulative because that was all she had been ever taught to do.
yeah, I think that is actually the case. And then I think it also should be noted that sometimes she has done it for good. She has used her potential, her intelligence, her power for good in some cases. She's helped Psyche in some cases. She's helped her maid in some cases. And there's even a specific case early on where this child's mother bowed to her and asked for forgiveness for her child's behavior. And she asked the mother to arise, and she told the mother, no parent should ever need to bow in front of their child. So I don't think it's fair to say everything she does is bad, because no matter what perspective you look at those instances, they're pretty good.
Yeah, like you said, she does use her manipulation to sometimes benefit others. For example, when she was in Psyche's body, she used her wits to make sure nobody was suspicious of this sudden change. So I do agree with your point on that.
Mm, exactly. And then in many cases, just like the case you gave, perhaps it's been instilled in her mind that this is the only way to survive. And this is why she does these things.
Yeah, that is true.
Mm-hmm.
However, there is one other topic that I do want to introduce because personally, I have a few problems with it, and it's her
Make
whole
way for it. Tell us.
basically it's her whole relationship, her whole dynamic with Healy, also known as Helio.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so I have to say in this conversation, I'm biased. I ship them together. Well, I think of her more as an independent. I feel like I just imagine her and Psyche becoming these people who are by themselves, being these super strong, individual, strong, amazing women. But then, yeah, I'm a Medea Helio shipper, so I'm very biased on this. So let's hear your approach, Vicious Venus. Tell me
So,
what's on your mind.
for those of you who have read Your Throne, you're probably going to be thinking that I'm going to talk about the whole, I don't know, romantic tension between them, but that's not really what I'm trying to approach right now. So, in the beginning of the series, we see that Helios and Medea have a very strong friendship bond. For a long time, they've been friends, and that was mainly because Medea gave Helios the confidence he needed to rise up and become a better leader, which is why they were such good friends. Medea gave him that confidence, and Helios gave her companionship. He was one of the very few people in her life that just made her life a lot better. However, later on in the series, we see her sort of leave him out of some of her plans. She keeps some of her plans a secret from him, and it's really it's concerning a bit because if this man is your most trusted friend, you should probably tell him some of your secret plans, otherwise it's going to come off as you're manipulating him. And in the
Mm.
most recent episode, we kind of do see some behavior from Healy, kind of treating Medea as if she is his master. And to be
Oh,
honest,
I know what
that
you're
didn't
thinking.
stick with me correctly.
Okay, so I have some things to combat that. So first, I'll say what I agree with. I do agree that right now, where it is at least in the second to last episode, I believe episode 54 or 55, um, he did show some alarming behavior. So in relationships, you're supposed to show each other as equals. And as Venus discussed, he treats her like his master.
He
In this
treats
episode,
her as if she's superior to him. And
exactly, which
yeah.
shouldn't be it. The thing I wanted to quote from, I believe, what Venus is referring to, and please correct me if I'm wrong. Um, Healy said, "When I did as you ordered, I made sure the rumor circulated within the temple. The rumor meaning another spoiler. Sorry, but if you didn't want spoilers, we warned you at the beginning." Yeah, so he says the rumor meaning the rumor that Medea is going to kill his father, and he says that he made sure to circulate the rumor within the temple. Since it was an oracle, it had to start in the temple in order for it to be believable. That way, nobody would doubt this rumor. So then there's this myth in their world that deep in the temple, there's this forbidden area where God's received. This temple is the forbidden area where God is received. If someone who's not a priest enters, God will get angry and send out a curse. And then Helio proceeds to tell her who would ever think that someone would dare trespass there. And then he tells her it was of no consequence, because he states this very clearly, because you are my God, you meaning Lady Medea. And he says, no one could have lowered themselves more than I have served you. No one has, and no one ever will. So please continue to keep me close to you. And he says this in response to him feeling as if Pelly was going to replace him. And there's two things with this. First, the obvious. He said she's his god. And he's hinted very early on that he has romantic feelings towards her. And I really want it to be the same later on. And I think there is a chance that this will become the ultimate pairing later on. Because I think there's definite signs that the author has placed. that this will be the final pairing. However, like I said earlier, relationships are meant to be equals, whether you're in a romantic relationship, a friendship, whatever. And if you both are not equals, if there's somebody above you, somebody on a pedestal, that's not a healthy relationship. Because that one person will be trying to do everything for that other person. That other person, because they are on top of the pedestal, they can use that person very, very hurtfully. And then, secondly, the way he says this in response to him feeling like Pelly might replace him. And he ends his sentence with, "So please continue to keep me close to you." That's obviously showing that he thinks he might be replaced. He needs to affirm his position. But in a relationship, you are equals. You both have a clear understanding of what the relationship is, and you shouldn't need to feel like you can be replaced at any second. You need to affirm the relationship at any second.
I do want to point out that Helios was kind of the one who started this whole dynamic of God and servant. He kind of consented to it. But the reason why it makes Medea questionable is because sometimes she encourages this behavior. Sometimes she just lets it continue instead of stopping it. She uses it for her benefit sometimes. And this makes her questionable because if you guys are friends or soon to be lovers, why would you want this to continue? It is such a strange dynamic to me. Why would you have this relationship of God and servant?
And then what did you say earlier? You said two things. You said, and I agree with what you just said, by the way, equals in relationships, guys. Do not expect anything less or anything more. Yes. You said two pieces of evidence. You stated this part where he holds her up to being his master, and you said one other piece of evidence. Can you repeat that if you remember?
I said that she often encourages this behavior of him being her servant. There are times when she uses it to her advantage by asking him to go do out certain tasks. And to
Oh,
be
yeah.
honest, if it was just like a general friendship, you would probably say no, I don't really want to do that. But since they have this whole god and servant dynamic now, he just goes and does it without any question.
But do you think if he asked her to do something, would she say yes? If he asked her to do something of the same severity?
That is a bit complicated for me because, to be honest, honestly, I feel that there are some circumstances where she would say no.
I think for the general part, I'd say yes, because she helped him at a point in his life, and I am not condemning that this relationship is healthy, because as I've reaffirmed earlier, this relationship is not healthy where it currently is at, and it needs to be changed. Pronto. On the dot. It's not healthy, guys. But yes, she picked him up from a place where nobody else would dare approach him. She's picked him up at a place where he was shunned from society, where he was very uneducated, where his parents had just passed away very recently, and he had little to no power. His whole Marcus um,
I think
point,
it was like the
he
Marquess or something, yeah.
yeah, but this was slipping away from him because he was just a small child. And this is actually a question I've had from the very beginning. Medea was always a very approach powerful people, not the weak. So I've always wondered why she chose to approach him out of, like, why didn't she just ignore him? Because she very well could have. But why did she choose to approach him and say, I want to be friends with this person? Well, no, not just friends. I want to help this person. I want this person to become of such power. And I think perhaps that's because she saw his potential, because she can see people's potential, no matter if
Yeah,
they
but
are weak or strong.
there's two problems with seeing, there's two things that come out of seeing others' potential. One, she could have saw his potential and said, oh, he shouldn't be treated like this. He has so much potential for greater things, so I'm going to help him. Or she could have thought, he has so much potential, he can help me gain what I want. There's two sides to it.
Right. And
I
I
do
think,
agree, though. She did help him when he needed it. So, and that's a good
right.
thing.
I think he just, yeah, I'll get back to that point. Yeah, I think she probably would say yes to any request. He just believes himself to be her servant, so I don't think he feels willing to ask her for other things compared to
Oh,
him
yeah,
being very, yeah,
that is true. He doesn't really feel like he needs to ask of that. He just
yeah,
does it.
or I don't know if he feels like he can ask for her to do things for him because they have this whole servant god relationship.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we could be just thinking too deep into it because this whole
Yeah,
thing started. So maybe
this whole
it's not as
conversation
bad.
is really deep.
Yeah.
Yeah, so a lot into that. But yeah, Venus's question at the very beginning, is Helio a good person or not? Is their relationship healthy? No, 100% not. Absolutely not. It is completely unhealthy right now. They are not equals. We have said this way too many times, but it's true. They're not equals in this relationship. It's not healthy. And if it continues to go on like this,
I'm afraid it
it's,
might get worse.
yeah. So at the end of the day, I really want them to end up together because, again, I am a Medea Helio shipper. However, it's not going to work out right now.
You just like come back a little later.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I want
So,
it to get better, but I don't know if it can get better or if it
yeah.
will get better or if somebody will try to make it better. Or will Medea continue this whole manipulative, she's a god and he's the servant? Because as you said, she does reaffirm it. Just as in this scenario, she also reaffirmed it by telling him, you have you fear too much. Or you fear too much of being away from me. I felt it was that was the tone of it, which perhaps that's not what a relationship should be. She should have been saying, why would you think that we are equals and all that stuff, but she didn't.
Okay, so yeah, that was a really deep topic to get into. And let's just get back to the whole is Medea a good person thing before we continue the
Totally.
whole is Helios in a good
Totally.
relationship.
Guys, yeah. Guys, comment down below if you guys want something more in depth about Helio. Because I think both of us could go on and on and on. Yeah, so there's actually a comment I wanted to refer to. It's a comment on the Your Throne episode. Um, it's one of the top comments actually, and it says, quote unquote, from somebody called Levi Hotia. Sorry, probably pronouncing that wrong. But yeah, one of the top comments on episode 54 of Your Throne, and it states, quote unquote, Medea asking herself why she feels bitter when experiencing how much the people love and socialize with Pell. Might be because she has never had the lot of people look at her with warmth or relaxation in their eyes, other than her, Nanny, Psyche, and Helio, though Helio does not look at her with relaxation in his eyes. Everyone had always slandered or used her, or looked at her in absolute fear, when she has done nothing yet, especially the common people, who have looked at her, who have never looked at her, for her. Which is very true. She did feel bitter because Pell was getting all this attention and warmth from the common people. Because when she goes out in public, she's shunned. Everybody hates her. They've heard all these manipulative things she's done. And it comes back to bite her. Every horrible thing she said, every horrible thing she's done, and rumors that she hasn't done that have stemmed because of manipulative things she has done, all come back to bite her. Nobody wants to be friends with her. Nobody wants to talk to her. Nobody approaches her and says, oh my god, you're my hero. nothing like that compared to Pelly, who's loved by everybody in their community. And that goes
I
back
think
to
this would start like a topic of what does. Sorry. I feel like this would start the topic of does she deserve that kind of backlash? And honestly, I don't really know.
Neither do I, honestly. I think
I mean,
to
seeing
some
how she grew up, I don't think she deserves it. But then, like, looking at her actions, she might.
right.
I mean, I personally don't think she deserves it, but I'm trying to look at this without bias.
Yeah,
So,
because both of us love her, by the way. We're absolute obsessed with her. We're total fans.
yeah,
But
don't get me wrong. She's one of my favorite characters, despite me sometimes bashing her right now. But she is one of my favorites.
we never bash her otherwise, by the way, guys. It's just today we're being forced to, because we forced this topic upon ourselves. Yeah. Yeah, but to sum up, at the end of the day, without bias, which we clearly have,
Is Medea a good person?
I
Now,
think she is, honestly. And I think this is going to differ from both of us. Because Villaness has
now,
already stated her opinion, she doesn't know. But for me, I'm going to go with yes. I do think she's a good person. I think her background, however, has twisted her in a way that's it can't be changed. The past can't be changed. But I think as of right now, as of where she is, I do think she's a good person. So,
yeah, bias to me would definitely say yes, she's a good person, she's a great protagonist. But non-bias me would say it really does depend. Some of her actions are really terrible.
right,
Some
but give
of
us a
them are not that bad.
right, but give us a definite. If you had to say at the end of the day, good or bad, tell us. If you had to 100% like you have to. It doesn't have to be like what you're thinking. But if you
Okay.
have to give an option at the end of the day, good or bad.
Okay. Unbiased me thinks she is good, but she has so much potential and so much buildup to be a villain.
I can get behind that.
That's unbiased me.
Same. Okay, so we're on the same boat. Okay, so
Yep.
at the end of the day, our first co-host episode, guys, 31 minutes. Pretty
Yay.
good. So, without bias, which again, we showed very clearly, without bias, what do you guys think? If we saw the story from another point of view, would we think differently about Lady Medea? And what about Helio? Would we still ship them? Would we still think they're perfect together from a different point of view? Or perhaps if something changed? Or right now, what do you guys think about Helio and her? Do you think do you think they should end up together? Or do you think somebody else should end up together? Let us know in the comments
And
down below or message us. Yes?
for those of you who probably continued to listen to the episode despite the spoilers, keep in mind that there's a lot of stuff we actually did not cover about the series. You can still go on Webtoon and read this right now. There's a whole bunch of stuff. Like, we didn't even talk about Eros or Psyche. You should still definitely read it, despite the little spoilers we gave.
Definitely. If you have not checked it out, totally go read it. And let us know. Do you guys like it? Do you guys dislike it? What do you think about Helio? What do you think about Medea? Let us know everything, and let's engage in some awesome Lovers of Lore discussions. Once again, I'm your host, Original Orchid,
And I'm Vicious Venus.
and thank you for taking your time out of your day to listen and support us. See you next week.
See you next week.